Winning strategies for franchising your business. Strategy number 2, building a rock-solid FDD and legal foundation. Franchising is a highly regulated, it's a legally driven business relationship. And so your FDD, the franchise agreements that you're going to be signing with your future franchisees, they form the foundation of your franchise system. They become a critical asset to what you're building. In winning strategy number 1, we talked about beginning with the end in mind, starting your franchise journey with an understanding of your 3, 5, and 10-year vision. Understanding that the value of your franchise system, well, it's going to be about your royalty stream years from now. How much money your franchisees are paying in royalties, how enforceable your legal agreements are, how durable those royalties are. And so now when speaking with private equity groups, when they evaluate and value a startup and emerging franchise system, one of the first things they evaluate is the legal infrastructure. They evaluate the franchise compliance, the FDD registrations, the enforceability of the franchise agreements. So as you franchise your business right now, one significant goal is building a rock-solid legal foundation. How do we get there? Well, the first step is what we've already discussed, which is understanding the importance of your FDD and your franchise agreements. The franchise world, people selling you on the concept of franchising, they make it sound like a formality, like a widget that you just check the box on and someone produces, or a franchise developer claims they could help you with. That's not the case. Years from now, you're going to look back on your FDD, on your franchise agreements. They're going to be a critical asset. So step 1 is understanding the importance of what we're building and the task at hand right now. Second step, well, that's working with the right legal team, a team you trust, a team that's been involved in developing franchise systems. And I'm not talking about just the large franchise systems, but startups. A team that's seen what's happened and the pathway that successful franchisors have taken from day one when they started franchising their business to becoming an emerging franchisor that grows to building a 100+ unit thriving franchise system. So if your legal team understands the pathway, they could help you plan ahead. And most important, they could legally protect you and position your brand today and for years to come. Next is best practices. Your FDD, your legal infrastructure need to reflect best practices. And what is best practices? Well, it's a combination of competitively positioning your brand, with protecting your brand, and taking everything that works in the franchise industry for startup and emerging brands, for startup franchisors, and making it work for you. So we need to competitively position your franchise offering and position in a way where you can scale and grow. Now, as you scale and grow, we want legal protection. We want growth in the franchise industry. One of the most surprising and troubling things that I'll encounter is I'll meet a successful founder of a franchise system. We talk about onboarding with our team, their challenges and the pain points, why they're contacting us. And even though they've been successful, even though they've sold franchises, what they find in years 3, 4, and 5, they reach pain points, friction points where their legal infrastructure wasn't what they thought it was, or it's not scaling as their franchise system grows. Maybe their item 19 wasn't structured the right way. Maybe they didn't structure the right territories, or they didn't set up the right corporate entities or legal infrastructure. They didn't know it at the time. They were new to franchising. And what they're finding is that they need to change their FDD. They need to change their infrastructure, and they have gaps that they didn't expect. And so that's why we're producing these videos. This is why we're talking about beginning with the end in mind and understanding the importance of your FDD, your legal infrastructure. And it's not just about legal protection, it's also about best practices, which combines franchise growth with legal protectability. When we work with our clients, one of the most important first steps when we're talking about best practices is assessing and competitively positioning their brand, the successful business they are today, and how does that translate into a startup and successful franchisor, right? So we need to evaluate what your business is all about, what differentiates your brand, What do your unit level economics look like? If you're a service-based business, what are your territory sizes? Where do you operate right now? And is your territory representative of where a franchisee will be operating? If you're a restaurant or you're a retail-based business, what do your location demographics look like? How do you use digital and social media? How do you use it to market and grow your business? What technologies support your business? What differentiates you from competitors? And what does your financial performance look like? So when we take a look at your success, your financial performance, what do your gross sales look like? What are cost of goods sold, or your food cost, or your product cost? And how does that translate into gross profit? How does that translate into what a franchisee may expect? So the first stage when we're evaluating best practices and integrating them into your FDD and legal infrastructure is understanding your competitive positioning. Taking all of that data and all of that assessment and using it to make recommendations and competitively position your franchise brand in terms of our recommendations for your initial franchise fees. Whether or not we structure your FDD to offer individual unit opportunities and multi-unit development opportunities. The territory sizes we award, how we define a territory, whether or not we have the ability to offer franchisees the option to purchase multiple service territories. Your royalty rate, which is typically a percentage of sales, but do we incorporate minimum royalty standards? Do we evaluate or recommend fixed fee royalties? Technology requirements, how we implement them in your FDD, in your franchise agreements, ongoing marketing obligations. Franchisees, their success is going to depend on how they market. And how do we integrate in your franchise agreement, in your FDD, their ongoing obligation to market their own business? And then ultimately, when we're developing your FDD, how do we develop your Item 19 financial performance representations? Are they competitive, and how do we make them competitive, and how we make them better than your competitors in the franchise industry? So best practices, it's combining legal protection with what works in franchising. It requires a detailed assessment of your brand, of your business right now, and then deploying that to competitively position your franchise offering in your FDD, in your franchise agreements, the unit level economics, and everything that surrounds what will soon be your franchise offering. Now, when we talk about legal foundation, building that rock solid legal foundation, that also means during the development process, we're setting up a new franchising company for you. So we'll be incorporating and forming a brand new franchise entity. This is going to be the company that sells franchises, supports franchisees, receives fees in terms of initial franchise fees and ongoing royalties, protecting your trademarks. And it's not just about registering your trademarks with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, but also structuring your trademarks so they're owned potentially by an IP holding company, that we have the right intercompany license agreements, evaluating your supply chain so it's properly disclosed in the FDD, and so we have flexibility in the future to add new vendors or to become a supplier ourselves. An example being call centers. If you're a service-based business right now, you probably don't have a call center. If you do, that's great. But as we develop your franchise system, as we take that 3, 4, 5-year vision, well, down the line, as your franchise system grows, as you add franchisees, you may be creating a call center, a contact center that assists with estimates, answering calls, web chats. There's value in producing that. There's value in that coming from a unified source, which is you. But if we don't disclose it in today's FDD and create the right legal infrastructure, you're going to have a hard time introducing it in the future. So we look at supply chain, we look at future system requirements. Legal protections also means integrating and consulting with your accounting team to make sure you have the right corporate structures in place and positioning your audit for issuance in your FDD. So to recap, our second strategy, it's building that rock solid legal foundation for your FDD, your franchise agreements, your entire legal infrastructure. Why? Because everything you're building is built on this legal platform. If 5 years from now you sell your franchise company, its value, well, in addition to the success in the marketplace, your royalty streams and your franchisee satisfaction, it's only as good as the enforceability and protectability of your legal foundation. And your FDD is a legal document. It's a legal disclosure. It needs to provide you with the legal protection to grow, and it needs to incorporate best practices. And when we talk about best practices, that's about strategy and scaling your franchise system, going from startup franchisor to emerging franchisor to thriving franchise system that wins. Franchising is not a cookie cutter process. You need to get these things right. We need to build and plan to win, and understand that once you issue your FDD, once you issue your franchise offering, you're just getting started. But make sure you do it with the right foundation.